We were discussing the number of cranes that are up there. There are more than 24 cranes in Miami. The arm of the crane has collapsed on top of a building. This happened just a short time ago. This is one of the biggest concerns with high-rises going up in the area. There's a lot of construction going on in Miami. We don't have any word of injuries. One would hope that a construction site was vacated. What we had heard is that the standing pillar of these cranes were solid. They could handle winds of up to 145 miles per hour. It's the T part of the crane that in many cases they were being allowed to swing around. So we're not quite sure what has happened here, but you can see very clearly a crane has collapsed. Again, the hope would be there's no construction going on there right now. The construction site would most certainly be closed and everybody around it should be gone. So we're hoping that this is a crane that has fallen and no one is there at all. Sam Champion, this is something that you and I were talking about just a while ago. There's a lot of construction. Just tell me again what the preparations are that go into dealing with cranes.
All right, so, Ali, these construction cranes, now, supposedly, everything that I have read about them, and I've seen them fail in storms before, I've seen them kind of crumple. So, actually, the structure itself kind of gives in and fails. You can see that it's kind of like a triangular structure with supports all the way through it. There's 3 poles usually on them, and then they weave those small poles in between the tall ones to give it strength. So sometimes if you see them fold and crumple together, sometimes the wind has been so strong that the structure itself will fold or it will break. There's another way that they can fail, and that is they're mounted at a base. They're bolted in to the construction on top of the building. And sometimes, that one looks like it failed and folded, actually. But sometimes those bolts, when you get that much force on the crane structure itself, the bolt can give way and it can fall. The other thing is, if you have the top of the crane that lays out like that, and you unpin it here and it's able to swing so that it's not holding itself against the wind. And sometimes you'll see a problem with that, giving it more motion to the crane to fall. But in this one, you can see how it's like crumpled. I'm looking at your image right now on the top of the building.
It's bent.
And it's just one of the huge concerns about having those cranes in the area, and it's why, as part of the evacuation order, there was an entire separate line about, we know these cranes are in Miami. We have, I think there's 24, anywhere between 24 and 28 of them. I'm not sure exactly how many there were. We know these cranes are here in the Miami area, and if you live in one of the buildings near those cranes, you should also evacuate.
Right, because the issue is this one seems to have, and again, we have no more news on this except this picture and the confirmation that the crane is down. We have verified that the picture is real, but we don't know. It does not look like it's hit anything else, which is the good news. But the bottom line about cranes is it's not your crane, it's the crane near you that you have to be worried about.
Absolutely. You know, because anything could happen at that point, and that's the huge concern about having them up. Unfortunately, the people we've talked to, and again, I'm just kind of relaying information that I got from people who work with them. They tell me that it takes 2 weeks to take down one of those cranes, to fully disassemble one of those cranes. And if that's the case, then even the advanced warning that we had on this storm wouldn't really have allowed the crews to take that down if you truly need that much time to dismantle one. And it's a really great question to ask of someone, is there a way to partially dismantle it? Can you lean it over? But look how tall they are. Sometimes they're taller than the tops of the buildings are. So it's very difficult to get those out of the way of a storm like this.